Alright, hello and welcome to my Big 12 2023 predictions. I just had to run through the whole thing again and try and say what I've said for the Pac 12 because it all reset. So if the Pac 12 is a little different, I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure, like, I'm almost 99.99986 whatever percent sure that I got all the non-conferences right. So the Pac-12 itself might be a little twisted in certain games. I was kind of skeptical on UCLA's schedule. I thought I had them going 6-6, but somehow they ended up 7-5. Not sure how that happened, but we're gonna do the Big 12. So let's just get straight into it. I'll adjust things, make things clear once I finish this up, but I just don't have the time right now, and I'm trying to pump this out. So let's get straight into it. So last time when I was talking about Oregon, I don't remember if I explained this one, but basically the reasoning for me choosing Texas Tech is, one, Texas Tech is preseason ranked in the top 20. Texas Tech has got a big fan base, and this is a pretty important game for Texas Tech to win. I think there will be a lot more Texas Tech incentive to win this than there will be Oregon, as well as Oregon has to travel quite the distance into a pretty tough Texas Tech team nonetheless. I don't know if Oregon will be able to pull it off. I could be wrong. Texas Tech could be overhyped, but I'm still going to give it to Texas Tech. So I have them beating Wyoming, beating Oregon, beating Tarleton State. At West Virginia, give me Texas Tech. Against Houston, Houston's going to get a blast of realness in their first year. I'm really looking at all of these teams like UCF and whatnot. I'm not going to favor them at all. Give me Texas Tech. At Baylor, could be a tough one, but Baylor, they're questionable. They were already very underwhelmingly bad last year. So give me Texas Tech. They'll go 6-0 before they have to play their first, tough conference game. Really, Texas Tech, we could say bang, 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 and then they lose there. They go in the 11-1. There's so much room for that to happen, and and that's why I say this game is huge for them, because Oregon really poses a bigger threat in my eyes than Kansas State and TCU does. Now I know TCU did whatever in the national championship. They made it all the way there and whatnot. TCU could very well be good again this year, and they just got tanked in the rankings. But Texas Tech, to me, I don't know what's happened to Kansas State in the offseason, but for Texas Tech to go from an unranked team pretty much all last year to preseason number 20, which is just, I think, 4 spots away from Kansas State, I'm going to choose Texas Tech there. So let's go ahead and uncheck all of these. BYU, I think they're going to get rocked in this conference. I think they're going to get absolutely smothered in their first year in the conference. They'll be taking Kansas's spot. So give me the Tech. And then TCU, this one's a tough one because, like I said, we could do something like this, which would put us at 11-1, but I don't want to do that. I feel like going from a 5-loss team to a 1-loss team is just really difficult. Who cares what TCU did? It's nonetheless really difficult, and when you're making predictions, you have to be realistic. So I'm going to select TCU there. TCU upsets Tech on the road. The game last year was already pretty close, but TCU also had a lot of close games. I'm going to take TCU over Texas Tech, hitting them with their first loss of the season. Tech wins at Kansas, beats UCF, and then loses at Texas. I think Texas will be a pretty good team. Yes, they get ranked highly all the time, but man, they do have quite the lineup. I don't really like their quarterback, but he can get it done. The only reason I really don't like Texas's quarterback, whatever Ewers or something, is because of that TCU game. He was horrendous. He was awful in that TCU game, and they could have beat him. I was praying for the upset. Even though I like the Horned Frogs, I always like myself an upset, and they just sucked. So that would kind of tainted my view on him, but let's get straight into Texas. So Texas beats Rice, and Texas beats Wyoming. A fantastic second game of the year, but let's be realistic now. It's at Alabama. If it was at Texas, I would take Texas, but it's at Alabama. Second game of the season. It's a top 10 matchup. Alabama's swarmed with talent. Their quarterback is a question, but they're still nonetheless absolutely swarmed with talent. It'll be a full stadium. Texas is just going to be overwhelmed, I think. I think Texas could put up competition, but Alabama will have every aspect of Alabama will be over Texas's in this game. Texas beats Baylor on the road. Texas beats Kansas. Oklahoma. All right, so actually, let's go ahead and hit pause because I want to go on a rant here. So there was a website that I was looking at that had like the preseason whatever top 25, and then I looked at ESPN. I've been checking all the time, and then I got the AFCA coaches poll released, the top 25 for 2023. It looks pretty reasonable. They have Alabama at number 3, which I disagreed, and FSU at number 8, which I also disagree. I feel like those two should be swapped, if anything. They have Texas at number 12, and everything looks pretty agreeable until I see Oklahoma at number 19. That is ridiculous. And that alone might put a little bias into my Oklahoma predictions because of the fact that they got ranked in the top 25. They also knocked Texas Tech down from 20 to 24. So a lot of stuff changed with the AFCA coaches poll. But give me Texas in the Red River matchup. Easy. I don't think Oklahoma will be that good. They were 6-6 last year. They played in a close game against FSU in their bowl game, but that was the only impressive game they had. I mean, are we going to gloss over the fact that TCU absolutely killed them? And ultimately, I think they lost to West Virginia, right? Like, they were not good. They were not good. And I just don't know how you can bounce back. I haven't seen any Oklahoma news. Normally, my opinion changes on a team due to the news that pops up in, my YouTube feed or, just if I'm, searching for stuff, football stuff. I haven't seen anything Oklahoma. So, I'm just not. Give me Texas at Houston. Give me Texas against BYU. Kansas State. Now, listen. I don't want to shit on Kansas State. I really feel like choosing a lot of teams over Kansas State. But I'm going to take Texas here. But give me a loss to TCU. And then give me a win there and a win there. That's still going to put them into the Big 12 championship. But since they lost to Alabama, since they lost to Alabama, they'll be a 2-loss team. And here's my prediction. So, before we go to that part, let's do TCU now because they're part of it. So TCU. Those are very, very easy choices. I mean, they have a cakewalk of a first schedule. I don't believe Houston. I feel like they're just going to get hit with reality in this conference and get hit with a hard season. But TCU, we'll skip that one for now. TCU wins there, and we'll hold off on that. So TCU, if they can win at Texas Tech like I have them doing so, they've got a clean shot. So, however, I will have them losing to Kansas State. The thing is I don't think there will be a Big 12 team in the college football playoffs. So give me Oklahoma. We'll say that will be the upset. Because in all honesty, this would be their biggest choice, but it lines up with my prediction on that one, and I don't want to mess with it. It lines up on my prediction there. And there's no way the rest, it's got to be Oklahoma, right? It's got to be. And after all, now we can use the top 25 ranking against them. They are placed in the top 25, so they should have a little bit of a chance for an upset. 10-2. This is where things get wacky though, and kind of gets hard to figure. Oh, well, no, it doesn't because Texas Tech. No, wait, yes, it does. God, this is where stuff gets difficult because TCU beats Texas, Texas beats Texas Tech, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech gets kicked out here. It'll be TCU versus Texas, which is actually what I kind of wanted. I think Texas Tech will have a good year, but they'll be like a Minnesota team where they won't make it. They'll have a fantastic year, but they won't quite make it. That's what I was shooting for, a 1-loss team in the championship that would lose and get knocked off. Let's do Kansas State next. Sorry, this prediction video is so far the most ass-cheeks prediction video. Missouri will not be good. Missouri just will not be good. Will not win there. When that's the first Oklahoma State I've seen. And a loss to your rival. I don't think Kansas will be that bad. Kansas State will be a good team. They finished off a 4-loss team, and were placed really highly last year, but that's because they made it to the Big 12 championship and won and whatnot. This year they won't make it because they would have obtained a 3rd loss to Kansas, and they'll be wherever placed. They'll be placed like how Oregon State was placed last year. Now let's do Oklahoma, since I saw that one first. Those are simple choices. Cincinnati. We'll hold off on that one for now. Click, 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 click. So they'll still be a pretty good team, but give me Cincinnati. So maybe top 25. I was shitting on it, but I feel like just placing them in the top 25 says a lot. But I feel like they could work for it. Being placed in the top 25 is a lot. But give me Cincinnati, give me Kansas, and give me Texas. Those are their 3 losses. Now let's do Cincinnati. Oh my goodness, guys. For a first year in the Big 12, Cincinnati struck gold. Here, Cincinnati. This one could be tough, but if Cincinnati manages to pull it off, they'll get off to a 4-0 start. That's a big question, though, because I don't think Pittsburgh will be too terrible. They'll be pretty good. Cincinnati wins at BYU. They beat Iowa State. They beat a close one and a tough one against Baylor, as well as at Oklahoma State. This is where stuff gets tough. So give me Kansas. Actually, give me Oklahoma State. Why would I even say that? At Oklahoma State. Give me Oklahoma State. UCF versus Cincinnati. Teams that are fond of each other. Give me Cincinnati. Give me Houston. Give me Cincinnati. In a first year of the Big 12, guys, they have one team that will be preseason ranked top 25. Like, they have one team. I don't think Pittsburgh is ranked. Kansas isn't ranked. One top 25 in the fat Big 12 conference we have right now. It's just a primetime schedule. That's why I'm so high on them right now, is because if they can beat Pittsburgh and beat Oklahoma, they've got a freedom of a schedule. They could pull it off. I mean, seriously. If they win here, win here, like, look at how easy the rest of the schedule is. This one would be a very hard finish, but look at how easy the schedule is. You guys have got to see where I'm coming from right now. Like, if they can pull off these 2 games, I mean, this could easily be said and done as well. If they could pull off these 2 games, they go to the Big 12 championship in their first year, because they got set up with a cakewalk of a schedule. But I'm going to choose some games. I have a feeling they'll get off to a hot start. People go crazy for Cincinnati. There's always a team that people go crazy for. Now let's do Kansas. Kansas wins. That one might be tough, but give me Kansas, Kansas, Kansas. Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas. We have a lot of 3-loss teams so far, which it's reasonable, though. That looks like a pretty solid... Oh, look at this spider. There's a spider running up my wall right now. Let's just... Bonk. Alright, sorry, that's taken care of. Where was I? Alright, Kansas. I don't like 9-3 for Kansas, though. I don't like 9-3. So let's go ahead and sneak in an upset. We'll feel like the team that would stand the strongest at Iowa State. A 4-loss season for Kansas seems pretty good. They were off to a great start last season. They were 5-0, and they were 5-0, and they lost a thriller against TCU. In reality, they really were not a bad team. And I believe they've done well. I believe they've kept people. So I don't think Kansas, there should be no reason, especially with kicking out some old Big 12 teams and throwing in more cakewalks. They should have no reason to go 4-loss. All right, now let's do Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State will have a pretty down year. All right. Give me Houston, give me UCF, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma State. Now, yeah. I think they'll have a pretty down year. Down year meaning, I don't want to say like a 3-loss team. I think Oklahoma State won't be horrible. But I don't, like a 6-6 record is good. But I feel like, if we look at the AFCA coaches poll, I believe they're pretty highly up in receiving ranks, or in receiving a spot. They're receiving 12 votes, which isn't too high but too low. I think they'll upset. They lost a very good quarterback. Spencer Sanders was really good, and he's gone now. And Oklahoma State overall just shot the bed. I get injuries, but if they play anything like they did in the second half of the year, they will not be good. Let's do some more. Houston. It's so difficult with these small teams because I automatically want to favor the Big 12 teams, but Houston isn't awful. So I just think these teams in their first year are going to like really struggle. They're going to really struggle. So give me Houston will be off to a decent start. They'll be off to a 3-2 start with a win against West Virginia, but a loss at Baylor and a loss at UCF, going 6-6 in their first collegiate Big 12 year. That seems pretty simple for me. Now let's do UCF, who overall disappointed me last year because UCF was like, they beat Tulane and they were a 2-loss team, but then they just proceeded to lose a bunch and lost their bowl game. And it was like, well, you guys just like handed Tulane their second loss and knocked them out. Like, fuck you guys. So UCF, hold off on that one. That could be a pretty good game. UCF against a basketball school. Give me Baylor on the road. Give me UCF. Give me Boise State. Boise State won't be a bad team. That's actually a pretty solid matchup between the two. And they'll go 5-7 in their first year. Winning against West Virginia, winning against Oklahoma State, and winning against Houston. But losing against like pretty much every normal Big 12 opponent and Cincinnati. See, like what I'm trying to go for is in their matchups against like their teams, they'll split pretty evenly. They play looks just like 2 teams. They only play 2 teams and they split it evenly. Let's go. Find the person. God, I'm like AIing out right now. I'm sorry. All right, Baylor. They already off to a pretty like all right start. They'll have a pretty split season. I'd say Baylor does have a good lineup to go 6-6 again. I feel like they've got a pretty solid shot at going 6-6. I don't think they'll beat Utah. I think Utah's way more developed than them, as well as Texas Tech. Although they do get those 3 games at home. These 2 are definite losses. I feel like that's just very close to a definite loss. Overall, I mean, they've just stained my view from last year. Let's go to Iowa State, who shouldn't be hard. Boom, boom, boom. No, boom. 4-8. That's like what they were last year. Iowa State, I don't think they've improved too much. I feel like that's a pretty simple one. West Virginia, Penn State. They'll go 4-8 as well. They went like 5-7 last year. They'll be worse this year. I feel like there's some more. Is that the last Big 12 team? Nah, BYU. BYU, who I said was going to get hit hard. Already completed. 2-10. They'll win their first 2 games and lose every other one. They're going to get hit hard in this conference, y'all. Sorry, they are. If you're a BYU fan, I'm sorry. I just have no faith in your team. 2-10, sitting at the bottom. Sitting at the bottom of their conference. That looks like that's it for the Big 12. I'm not forgetting anybody of this literal super conference that they're building. So, with that being said, now let's go ahead and look at what we have. We have BYU going 2-10. BYU going 2-10. Texas going 10-2. Texas Tech going 10-2. TCU going 10-2. Kansas State going 9-3. Oklahoma going 9-3. Cincinnati going 9-3. Kansas going 8-4. Houston going 6-6. Oklahoma State going 6-6. Baylor going 6-6. UCF going 5-7, Iowa State going 4-8, West Virginia going 4-8. I already said BYU. So we've got a lot of teams that are going to be highly placed. I mean, really, like it's difficult, like when you're making predictions, right, to see 3 2-loss teams and then 3 3-loss teams. It's just difficult, right? But in all honesty, like West Virginia, BYU, UCF, like, I mean, they're not really like that good of teams. Like, they should be victories. These are very well developed teams. TCU has every right to be ranked at 10-2. They went to the national championship. Texas had an outstanding recruiting class, and they've got a pretty good quarterback. Texas Tech, like, I mean, yes, they finished off 5 losses last year, but they almost beat TCU. They beat Texas and Oklahoma in the same year. Like, they were a pretty damn good team. They showed a lot of fight and lost some close games. They could have been much better than what their record was, and overall, coaches think they should be ranked in the top 25. Cincinnati, they have a cakewalk schedule. If they can pull off certain wins, which I don't think Cincinnati's a bad team, I think they can do, they can win. Oklahoma's preseason ranked in the top 25. They've also got a relatively easy schedule ahead of them. And they just have to pull off one upset. Like, I mean, my predictions seem stupid. They seem wrong, but there's reasoning. So let's go ahead and say who's going to win this Big 12 championship. So Texas is in. Texas, it will be somebody versus Texas because they'll only have one conference loss. So TCU will lose to Oklahoma and to Kansas State. Those are the 2 teams. Texas Tech will lose to TCU and to Texas. So it'll be TCU versus Texas. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. It'll be TCU versus Texas. Give me Texas. Give me Texas. Texas will lose at TCU and get redemption in the Big 12 championship. TCU will lose it for the second year in a row, going 10-3. Who knows who they'll play in their bowl game? And Texas will be 11-2 going into their bowl game. And Texas will have one of the best years they've had in a long time, finally getting ranked highly and living up to the expectation. So my Big 12 championship winner will be Texas this year. And that is my Big 12 predictions. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm expecting to be called stupid, so don't fret to hold back. It's predictions. Everybody's allowed to speak. A like would help. And that's all for me. Adios.